What if a single soldier could fool his enemies by walking right beside them, disguised as one of their own, and then strike with deadly precision? Imagine the calm intensity of a man whose very survival depends on every step, every word, and every breath. This isn't just a tale of battlefield bravery, it's a story of raw cunning and nerve under siege. Ukraine's 425th Assault Regiment, known as the Skala Regiment, has carved its name into the chronicles of this conflict. Since its birth in 2022, it has fought relentlessly, pushing back enemy lines with assaults and drone strikes. Recently, the regiment sharpened its edge with American M1 Abrams tanks, delivered by Australia, boosting Ukraine's armor and firepower. Yet, this story pivots away from heavy machines. It zooms into the solitary struggle of one soldier with only a rifle and a razor-sharp mind. Separated from his comrades, the soldier moved along a dusty road strewn with rubble, a harsh landscape hardened by war's unforgiving hand. Barely feet behind him, 2 Russian soldiers trailed in single file, unaware of the danger they were walking into. Above, a drone silently recorded the unfolding drama, the slow, measured pace of the 3 men as tension tightened like a noose. The odds were stacked heavily against the Ukrainian. Outnumbered, outgunned, and stranded alone far from friendly units, his chances should have been slim. But the uniforms on both sides looked strikingly alike, a cruel twist that turned the battlefield into a stage for deception. Soldiers found themselves marking their arms with colored bands to avoid deadly mistakes. Yet, this time, the Russians failed to scrutinize closely. Perhaps the Ukrainian slipped off identifying marks, erasing signs of his real allegiance and blending into the enemy's ranks like a ghost in the fog. As the trio drew closer, they began to stride side by side, possibly exchanging casual words, unaware that they walked alongside a man who spoke their language fluently. Russian is widely spoken in Ukraine, some Ukrainians even grew up with it as their first tongue. This gave him a vital edge, allowing him to imitate the enemy's demeanor and dialect without arousing suspicion. Meanwhile, many Russian soldiers struggled to speak Ukrainian, making it difficult for them to imitate Ukrainian soldiers as seamlessly. What passed between them remains unknown. But every word was a careful gamble, every gesture a potential moment of exposure. One wrong move could have spelled doom. The soldier stayed composed, a calm center amid swirling danger. Then, as the 3 men moved forward, the Ukrainian slowed his pace, falling just behind. The Russians marched forward without hesitation, blind to the fate closing in on them. Suddenly, the silence shattered, a single, fatal shot struck the nearest enemy in the head. The man crumpled to the ground, lifeless. Before the second could react, the Ukrainian surged forward, firing again. Confusion flickered too late in the second soldier's eyes. Then he too dropped. In mere seconds, the relentless calculation of one man flipped the script. The soldier vanished swiftly into the shadows as the drone kept watching from above, capturing a brutal moment frozen in time. The exact location remains uncertain, but analysts suggest a small settlement northeast of Pokrovsk, an area officially under Russian control, though clearly not as secure as believed. This episode reveals much about the instability and chaos along the front lines where soldiers on both sides mingle unexpectedly. The lines are blurred, and misidentifications happen often amid the confusion and sparse troop deployments. Experts describe the front as porous, with stretches defended by fewer than 10 soldiers per kilometer. The desolate landscape is punctuated by concealed dugouts and hidden positions, where scouts encounter foes face to face with little warning. Notably, this is not a one-sided tactic. Reports recently emerged of opposing forces blending into civilian crowds, wearing ordinary clothes to strike from unexpected angles, an indicator of how desperate and inventive warfare has become. This soldier story starkly highlights the raw, unforgiving nature of survival in this conflict, where quick thinking and linguistic skill are weapons as powerful as any tank or drone. When every step could be your last, sometimes winning a fight means fooling your enemy first, and striking precisely when they least expect it. Previously, we saw a Ukrainian soldier trapped in a dangerous situation. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and in enemy territory. Yet, his every thought raced to find a way out alive. Now, let's dive into how he used the enemy's own clothing and language against them to escape a deadly trap. The battlefield is a maze of confusion, where uniforms on both sides look almost identical. Ukrainian and Russian soldiers wear nearly the same combat gear, so much so that both have resorted to wearing colored armbands just to avoid shooting their own teammates or welcoming foes by mistake. But in this case, the enemy wasn't careful. They failed to scrutinize their newcomer closely enough. Our soldier, cunning and desperate, had likely stripped away any clear signs of his true allegiance. His uniform showed no hint of his real identity. To the untrained eye, he might as well have been one of them, marching alongside two armed soldiers of the very force hunting him. The drone above silently recorded every step as they drew closer, walking side by side along the dusty road scattered with debris and the faint metallic scent of abandoned shells. Conversations may have started, filled with the cautious tones of wary soldiers. Here, the Ukrainian soldier held a hidden advantage: fluency in the enemy's language. Millions of Ukrainians grew up speaking Russian, some even native speakers. This fluency granted him a cloak more effective than any uniform. While many Ukrainians have turned away from Russian out of resistance and pride, countless others still speak it fluently, allowing them to blend seamlessly with opposing forces. Meanwhile, Russian troops often understand Ukrainian but rarely speak it. This linguistic imbalance means it's far easier for a Ukrainian soldier to pass as Russian than vice versa. In this charged moment, our soldier probably used flawless Russian to avoid suspicion, masking his heartbeat behind calm words spoken in the enemy's tongue. Despite this, the tension must have been suffocating. One wrong syllable, one awkward gesture, and his disguise would shatter. Those two men beside him wielded deadly force, quick to act against any threat. Walking shoulder to shoulder with potential executioners, the soldier navigated a razor-thin line between life and death. What happened next would reveal just how razor-sharp his instincts and nerves truly were. The question is, would he seize the moment or become another casualty in this brutal game? The answer hides in the drone's cold gaze, watching from above. Previously, we saw how this Ukrainian soldier skillfully blended in with his enemies by speaking their language, walking alongside them without raising suspicion. Yet, despite this deep disguise, he remained trapped in an overwhelmingly dangerous situation. One wrong move, one misplaced word, and everything could have ended in disaster. Imagine the tension in that dusty, barren landscape, every sound amplified, every breath stiff with danger. The soldier's heart must have pounded as he navigated the impossible. The drone circling high above captured every second of this deadly game of deception. Slowly, the Ukrainian began to fall behind his two unwanted companions, their steps steady but oblivious, walking straight into a trap they had no idea was closing in. Then, lightning struck. In one swift, ruthless moment, the soldier raised his weapon and fired. The Russian closest to him collapsed immediately, his fall silent and final against the dry earth. Time fractured in that instant. The second man whirled, a flicker of shock and realization crossing his face, too late. Another shot rang out, and he too hit the ground, just feet from his fallen ally. No hesitation, no turning back. The Ukrainian darted away, sprinting toward safety, his survival sealed by a razor's edge of courage and cunning. Above, the drone's lens continued to watch silently, witnessing the brutal proof that even behind enemy lines, ingenuity and nerve can carve a path to life. Though details remain murky, analysts believe this incident unfolded near Boykovka, a small settlement about 10 miles northeast of Pokrovsk. Official maps list this zone under enemy control. But this daring act hints at a far less secure grip, a reality shaped by stealth and unpredictability rather than fixed lines on paper. This story illuminates not just the harshness of modern conflict but the extraordinary resilience of those caught in its grip. While many might have fled or panicked, this soldier remained an unshakable presence, disarming danger with quiet calculation and explosive action. What pushed him to stay calm when every instinct screamed escape? Was this a lone soldier out of luck, or a seasoned operative skilled in invisible warfare? No one knows for sure. But one thing is clear, In this conflict, every moment can shatter expectations and flip fate in a heartbeat. And as the front lines blur and the quiet no man's land stretch further, who else walks these deadly roads? What other stories linger just beneath the radar, waiting to emerge from shadow into light? The war continues, but so does the will to endure, often in the most unexpected ways. Previously, we saw how thinly spread troops along vast battle lines create dangerous chances for soldiers to mistake friend for foe. This is especially true in the desolate no-man's land zones, where underground hideouts and scattered fighting posts dot the empty landscape. Here, scouts risk sudden encounters with enemies, struggling to tell who's who amid nearly identical uniforms and shared languages. Now, consider this, the blurred lines between soldier and civilian are no longer just accidental. In early August, chilling reports surfaced of enemy fighters abandoning military gear altogether. Instead, they slipped into ordinary clothes, blending into homes within a city perilously close to the front. This city, Pokrovsk, stands as a crucial crossroads, a prize fought over fiercely by both forces. Imagine the tension. The city's streets, once filled with daily life, now echo with the sounds of distant explosions and the hum of assault drones overhead. Russian forces have unleashed relentless waves of attacks, armored vehicles, infantry storms, and unmanned aircraft, all aimed at breaking through the Ukrainian defenses. Their goal is clear: surround Pokrovsk, sever its supply lines, and claim this vital hub. Yet, despite this barrage, Ukrainian defenders hold firm. Their trenches and barricades form a stubborn wall against the onslaught. But desperation is creeping in on the attackers. Unable to seize the city with brute force, they resort to shadowy tactics. Men in civilian clothes are spotted lurking in the shadows of Pokrovsk's neighborhoods, soldiers masquerading as innocents, hoping to infiltrate unseen. A striking image circulated quickly across Ukrainian networks: two men, dressed as ordinary residents, warned about as enemy operatives. This chilling development reveals a new level of cunning. According to Ilya Petrina, a Ukrainian deputy commander on the ground, these acts of disguise have become alarmingly common. "We have seen enemy soldiers removing their uniforms entirely," Petrina explained. "They even switch into our gear when they can. We find Russian military clothing in places they shouldn't be." This tactic, wearing the enemy's face, turns the battlefield into a maze of suspicion and fear. How can anyone trust what they see when foes lurk in familiar clothes and speak the same tongue? The front lines are no longer just physical barriers but psychological battlegrounds, where identity itself becomes a weapon. What happens when the enemy hides behind a mask of normalcy? When the line between civilian and combatant blurs, every shadow could conceal a threat. In Pokrovsk, the war isn't just fought with guns and tanks, it's a silent game of deception. And the stakes couldn't be higher. Will the defenders spot these hidden enemies before it's too late? Or will the city fall victim to this creeping infiltration? The fight for Pokrovsk is far from over, and the game of shadows may prove as deadly as any open battle. In the heart of turmoil, where courage meets cunning, one Ukrainian soldier defied the odds in a remarkable display of bravery and quick wit. As the war raged on, the Ukrainian armed forces showcased their ingenuity, desperately adapting and evolving in the face of relentless aggression. This soldier, a proud member of the 425th Assault Regiment, also known as the Skala Regiment, found himself in an impossible situation, isolated and pursued by enemy forces. Picture this: a dusty road, debris scattered underfoot, and tension thick in the air. The soldier, a flicker of determination in his eyes, tread carefully. Just behind him, a Russian soldier loomed, oblivious to the life-and-death game unfolding at his feet. How could he, alone and outnumbered, survive this deadly encounter? With war's chaos swirling around him, this soldier embraced a bold strategy. He quickly disguised himself, stepping into the role of his foe, the enemy he was trained to eliminate. The uniforms of both sides bore striking similarities, and he gripped hope tightly. As the two Russian soldiers marched alongside him, seemingly unaware of the deception, he relied on mastery of language to maintain his cover. Millions of Ukrainians are fluent in Russian, and this soldier was no exception. The drone above captured the suspense, its lenses focused on this chess game of survival. As the trio walked undetected, did the soldier dare hope for a miracle? He slowed his pace, heart pounding, mind racing with calculations of what must come next. And then, in a heartbeat, opportunity struck. He raised his rifle, adrenaline surging through him, and fired a single, precise shot. The first Russian soldier fell, lifeless, a sudden end to their casual stroll. The second, caught off guard, barely had time to register the betrayal before he too met the same fate. Victory was at hand, but where exactly was this treacherous tango unfolding? Analysts suspect it may have happened in Boykovka, an area believed to still lie under Russian control, but now illuminated by the bravery of one soldier's desperate act. It illustrated not just personal courage but the fog of war, the blurred lines between friend and foe, and the constant dance of deception on the battlefield. For every daring maneuver this Ukrainian soldier executed, we witness a contrasting fate in a nearby town. Russian soldiers, disguised as civilians, attempted to blend in and deceive. Yet, with unwavering diligence, Ukrainian forces hunted them down. Equipped with intelligence and a keen eye, they cracked down on each infiltrator hiding among innocent civilians. Imagine the shock of the unsuspecting soldiers, their civilian guise vanishing as Ukrainian troops uncovered their whereabouts. The hunters became the hunted, revealing how adaptability was not one-sided in this conflict. As the relentless struggle for Pokrovsk unfolded, one thing became crystal clear: Ukraine's resourcefulness and strategy left an indelible mark in the annals of this war, once again showcasing that spirit can triumph over brute force. In a world where chaos reigns, who truly holds the upper hand, those who defend with cunning or those who encircle with overwhelming might? This tale of survival and strategy not only redefines the essence of combat but confirms one undeniable truth: in the theater of war, the landscape is as unpredictable as the outcome. In the heart of a war-torn landscape, where chaos reigns and survival is a constant struggle, one Ukrainian soldier became the emblem of ingenuity and courage. Mysteriously separated from his unit and navigating a gravel-strewn path, he stumbled upon an unexpected opportunity. Just behind him, two unsuspecting Russian soldiers trailed closely, their presence a reminder of the ever-looming threat. Hovering above, an eye in the sky, a drone observed every heartbeat, and with each moment, tension thickened the air like the distant rumble of artillery. How could one man, outmanned and outgunned, defy the odds? It seemed unfathomable that he could disguise himself as an enemy to survive. Yet, with adrenaline coursing through his veins, he became the ultimate actor, camouflaging his true identity. Clad in similar uniforms, the soldier knew that a mere colored armband was all that separated his fate from the Russians. He recognized the critical urgency in this fatal tango: a single misstep could seal his doom. As the trio strolled along, the atmosphere changed. Was it camaraderie, or was it simply deception? The Ukrainian, fluent in Russian, blended seamlessly into the dialogue, his heart pounded in rhythm with each cautious breath. What thoughts raced through his mind with every syllable spoken? Perhaps he calculated the possible outcomes, weighing the gamble of playing a part that could lead to his execution or his escape. But in an instant, the act changed from mere deception to life-and-death audacity. As the Russian soldiers marched on, blissfully unaware of their peril, the Ukrainian slowed his pace. Preparing to strike, a predatory instinct awakening within. With a single calculated motion, he raised his rifle and pulled the trigger, the gunfire cutting through the quiet like a knife. One soldier dropped, lifeless, while the second, too late to grasp the unfolding horror, turned to face his demise. The Ukrainian's decisive action sent shockwaves through the enemy formation, but he knew he couldn't linger. With the drone capturing the aftermath above, he dashed away, each step heavier with the weight of victory and survival. What would become of him now? Was the risk worth the reward, or had he merely ignited a firestorm of retaliation? As tensions escalate within the region, these acts of boldness become part of a larger narrative. Whether hero or saboteur, it is clear that the lines between friend and foe blur as conflict breeds cunning strategies. Just a few weeks later, reports trickled in from Pokrovsk about Russian soldiers attempting to masquerade as civilians, evidence that the game of deception knows no bounds. The soldiers, striving to adapt and survive, faced a relentless hunt for their disguises. Could they sustain the charade in a city teetering on the edge? Meanwhile, the Ukrainian soldiers' deft maneuver will likely echo throughout ranks, a reminder that in war, every play could shift the balance between survival and destruction. This soldier, using quick wit and fearless execution, represents the determined spirit of his nation amid adversity. Strategies like his will redefine the battlefield, making it a stage for daring tales, where resourcefulness reigns supreme. How many more stories of ingenuity lie hidden waiting to be discovered in this immense theater of conflict? As the world looks on, the stakes escalate. Will peace ever rise from the ashes, or will cunning prevail? The answers lie wrapped within the fog of war, where every moment is both a breath of life and a dance with death. Earlier, we saw Ukrainian forces cleverly turn enemy communications against them, using a captured radio to redirect Russian fire and open a path for a decisive counterattack. Now, the story takes a darker turn. Not all Ukrainians stand united, some have chosen to fight alongside the invaders, pledging loyalty to Moscow instead of Kiev. This betrayal adds a complex and dangerous layer to the conflict. The Kremlin has exploited this, forming entire units from Ukrainians in occupied regions. One such unit, the 132nd Motor Rifle Brigade, played a key role in a bold push northeast of Pokrovsk. These soldiers grew up in areas like Donetsk and Luhansk. They know the terrain intimately, giving them a critical edge in navigating and blending into the landscape. Military analyst Rob Lee revealed that this brigade managed to slip deep behind Ukrainian lines, infiltrating over 10 kilometers beyond the front line. The full extent of their advance remains uncertain, but it was a serious threat. Still, Ukraine's defenders were ready. Their intimate knowledge of the land and fierce determination allowed them to mount a powerful counterattack. The 1st Azov Corps, alongside the 425th Assault Regiment, also known as the Skala Regiment, struck back hard. They nearly annihilated the infiltrating brigade and regained lost ground. This battle showcased not only tactical skill but also the emotional turmoil of facing enemies who once called this land home. Imagine the tension. Soldiers confronting former neighbors, fighting in familiar fields once filled with peace. The lines between friend and foe blur in the dust and smoke. How do you trust when the enemy might wear a familiar face? How do you fight when the ground beneath your feet feels like home to both sides? This tangled web of loyalty and betrayal raises a haunting question. When war turns neighbor against neighbor, what becomes of identity? As the front lines shift in unpredictable ways, the battle is no longer just about territory, it's about survival, trust, and the painful cost of divided hearts. But the story doesn't end here. What happens when soldiers use deception not just to survive, but to turn the tide in the deadliest moments? Stay with us as we uncover more shocking twists from the front lines. Previously, we saw how Ukrainian forces launched a powerful counterattack that nearly destroyed an enemy brigade and reclaimed critical ground. Whether confronting enemy soldiers disguised as locals, or facing compatriots siding with the opposition, Ukraine's troops continuously adapt and retaliate with unmatched tactical skill. The Ukrainian military keeps surprising the world with their resilience and creativity. Their ability to innovate on the battlefield is rewriting the rules of modern warfare. Recent advancements, like a new generation of drone technology, are about to tilt the aerial battles decisively in their favor, providing them with unprecedented surveillance and strike capabilities. To truly understand the depth of this conflict, it's essential to look back to 2014. That year marked the controversial annexation of Crimea. This move wasn't just a geopolitical maneuver, it was the seed of a larger plan, one that has shaped today's brutal war. It reveals much about the ambitions fueling the conflict and the long-term strategies at play. The war in Ukraine is not just a clash of armies, it's a complex struggle involving deception, loyalty, and an unbreakable will to survive. This ongoing saga continues to unfold, exposing the raw realities that so few could have anticipated. Stay tuned as this story evolves, revealing shocking truths and strategic breakthroughs that redefine what war looks like in the modern age. The battlefield is shifting, and so must we, to grasp the full scope of this historic fight. Previously, we saw a Ukrainian soldier face an impossible moment, trapped between two enemy troops with no obvious escape. Many in his position might have panicked or launched an unplanned attack, falling into a deadly firefight they would almost certainly lose. But this man chose a different path. Calm and collected, he acted perfectly normal, blending in as if nothing were wrong while the two soldiers, sworn to end his life, walked right beside him. What happened next was a deadly blend of patience and precision that saved his life, and ended theirs. How did he stay so composed? Could this have been his first daring move or part of a chillingly practiced routine? Some reports suggest he might belong to a special Ukrainian sabotage unit. Units like these infiltrate enemy lines, craft an illusion of safety, then strike unexpectedly, eliminating threats one by one from inside. On the other hand, perhaps he was just a regular soldier caught in the wrong place, outmaneuvering fate with sheer wit. Either way, his survival reveals something striking. The front lines here aren't clear, solid, or secure. Unlike the stark frontiers you might imagine, this battlefield stretches with blurred edges, no neat dividing lines dividing friend from foe. Smaller villages and rural spaces become ambiguous zones where soldiers of both sides unexpectedly cross paths. Andrew Perpetua, an expert in open-source military intelligence, highlights this sharply. There isn't a coherent front line. Rob Lee, a fellow analyst at a major foreign policy institute, agrees, adding, the front line is actually relatively porous. And there are often fewer than 10 soldiers defending each kilometer, depending on the terrain. This thinned-out front line, stretched across vast terrains, creates eerie conditions. Soldiers can stumble upon each other by chance in quiet, depopulated no-man's lands. These places teem with hidden or underground positions, pockets of life in an otherwise barren expanse. Uniforms are nearly identical, language is shared, and weapons look the same. It's no wonder mistaken identities happen, and why a soldier might find himself walking side by side with enemies, the air thick with tension, the faint metallic clang of gear a constant reminder of what's at stake. In such a landscape, survival demands more than just firepower. It requires nerve, guile, and the ability to turn the enemy's trust into fatal miscalculations. As our soldier's story shows, on this frail and shifting front line, the biggest weapon might just be the human mind itself. What other secret dangers and unexpected encounters are lurking in these ghostly borderlands? The answers lie where few dare to tread, exactly where this brave man once walked. Before we dive deeper, here's a quick recap. Russian soldiers disguised themselves as civilians and even swapped their military gear for Ukrainian uniforms. This tactic flooded Ukrainian social media with urgent warnings, beware, these are Russians. Ilya Petrina, a Ukrainian deputy commander in the area, confirmed that such incidents aren't isolated. Now, imagine the tension when enemy forces blend seamlessly into the city streets, indistinguishable from ordinary people. How do you fight an enemy you cannot see? The chilling truth is that Russian troops have gone beyond just changing clothes. Petrina revealed that his brigade frequently discovers Russian military uniforms abandoned in places they know were once occupied by enemy forces. These aren't random finds. Intercepted radio communications have exposed plans where Russian soldiers discussed disguising themselves to slip past Ukraine's frontline defenses. Their goal? To strike from within, attacking infantry or lightly armored vehicles, disrupting supply chains, and spreading fear and confusion among the local population. Picture this, a city under siege, where whispers spread of hundreds of enemy troops already inside. Saboteurs feed false information to civilians, telling them that 500 Russians have entered Pokrovsk, aiming to break the community's will to support their defenders. This psychological warfare is as dangerous as any frontline battle. How did the Russians manage to infiltrate the city in the first place? According to Petrina, a window opened during a stretch of bad weather in July. Ukrainian drone flights, critical for surveillance, were grounded, giving enemy saboteurs the chance to slip in unnoticed. Another commander, known as Ludiai, leading a drone strike unit in the 68th Mechanized Brigade, explained that one Ukrainian brigade mistakenly allowed these enemy groups through their checkpoints. It was a costly error. The infiltrators didn't move in large forces. Instead, they broke into small teams of 3 or 4, hunting for civilian clothing to vanish into the crowd. One was even caught wearing the uniform of Ukraine's state postal service, blending into everyday life like a ghost. This method of warfare is terrifyingly effective. When your enemy walks among you, trust becomes a weapon harder to wield than any gun. But the story doesn't end there. Ukrainian forces have been relentlessly hunting these hidden threats, conducting intense clearing operations throughout Pokrovsk. The city has become a battleground not only of guns and tanks but also of shadows and suspicion. Every stranger's face could be a disguise. Every quiet street could hide a lurking saboteur. How long can a city hold its breath, knowing that danger wears the face of its neighbors? What happens when the lines between friend and foe blur so completely that survival depends on constant vigilance and nerves of steel? This unfolding conflict paints a picture of warfare evolving beyond open battlefields. It's a deadly game of infiltration, deception, and psychological warfare. And in this game, the stakes couldn't be higher. Previously, we saw a Ukrainian soldier trapped in a deadly game of disguise and deception. Instead of panicking or launching a desperate attack, he stayed calm, blending in perfectly as 2 enemy soldiers unknowingly walked beside him. But what happened next was a stunning display of courage and precision that saved his life. Imagine the heart pounding, the dry dust swirling around worn boots, 2 men, armed and ready to kill, just steps away. Most would have fled or recklessly fired, risking certain death. Yet this soldier waited, every second ticking like a drumbeat in a silent battlefield. When the moment came, he struck without hesitation. The enemy closest to him dropped instantly. The second turned too late, falling just feet away. How did he pull off such a flawless ambush? Could this have been his first time, or was he part of a shadowy sabotage unit trained to slip behind enemy lines, sow confusion, and dismantle forces from within? Or perhaps fate simply placed him in the wrong place at the wrong time, and his quick thinking turned near disaster into survival. This gripping episode reveals something deeper. The front lines in this war are far from fixed. They don't form neat, unbreakable barriers. Instead, they shift and blur across fields, villages, and forests, where soldiers from both sides can unexpectedly cross paths. As military analysts explain, there isn't a coherent front line. In fact, some stretches have fewer than 10 soldiers for every kilometer of ground, leaving vast spaces where identities can be mistaken, and danger lurks in every shadow. In the barren no-man's land, dotted with hidden foxholes and underground shelters, soldiers must navigate not only enemy fire but confusion. Uniforms can look nearly identical. Both sides speak the same language. Even the rifles they carry are strikingly similar. These conditions breed moments where friend and foe merge into a deadly gray area. So, what happens when the line between ally and enemy dissolves? When trust is a gamble and survival demands cunning? This soldier's story offers a chilling glimpse, and a shocking answer. But is this lone act of bravery an anomaly or a glimpse into a wider, invisible war of infiltration and deception happening right now? Stay with me, because the next chapter uncovers how this fragile line shapes the brutal chess game of this conflict, where every step could be the last, and every breath might be a lie. In a time of relentless conflict, Ukraine's armed forces have shown an extraordinary ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. One astounding story shines through the chaos, revealing the sharp wit and bravery of a Ukrainian soldier who turned a life-or-death scenario into a lethal advantage. This soldier, part of the esteemed 425th Assault Regiment, known as the Skala Regiment, found himself isolated on a desolate dirt road, surrounded by potential enemies. What would you do if you were faced with overwhelming odds and hunted like prey? Imagine the quicksilver thoughts racing through his mind as he moved stealthily, blending in among Russian troops as they unknowingly walked beside him. In this moment, survival hinged not just on courage, but on his ability to disguise his true identity, donning the mask of a foe to outsmart them. A drone hovered above, capturing this intense moment. The air was thick with tension, the sound of boots crunching on gravel echoing in their ears. The two Russian soldiers, oblivious to the impending danger, were mere steps away from sharing their final breaths. Cloaked in the uniformity of war, did they pay attention to the subtle cues that could have revealed his true nationality? Or had he stripped away any sign of his Ukrainian identity, mere inches from the real threat? As they walked side by side, was he rehearsing the lines in his head, each Russian word rolling off his tongue like second nature? The stakes were sky-high, the room for error slim. But in that critical moment, he remained composed. Biding his time like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Suddenly, with a calculated flicker of purpose, he raised his weapon. The sharp crack of gunfire broke the stillness of the air. The first Russian soldier dropped, a lifeless figure crumpling to the ground. Would the second soldier realize too late the imminent peril he faced? In that split second, the realization dawned on the second Russian, but he was not swift enough. The Ukrainian soldier made his move, the gunfire erupting once more, another enemy falling just feet away from his comrade. Victory struck like a thunderbolt, and as the dust settled, the Ukrainian fled, leaving the drone to silently observe the aftermath of ingenuity and brave survival. But where did this all unfold? Some experts believe it occurred in Boykovka, a site claimed by the Russians yet now marred by doubt. As military maps suggest, perhaps their hold isn't as ironclad as it seems. This story not only captures the cunning of one Ukrainian but reflects the fluid nature of conflict, where the line between friend and foe blurs, and the chaos of war often breeds unexpected encounters. Yet this is not an isolated tale. Ukrainian intelligence has uncovered Russian attempts to disguise themselves, infiltrating cities while masked as civilians. They wielded this tactic to spread confusion and fright among the local populace. Could the Russians have learned from their adversary? Ilya Petrina, a commander in the region, highlighted numerous cases where they've adapted to blend in, unraveling the very fabric of familiar safety. As the realities of war continue to unfold, the landscape becomes a character of its own. Each corner turned could shelter allies or enemies, and each wrong move could have dire consequences. Such is the theater of operations where strategic brilliance and adaptability can mean the difference between life and death. Will the ingenuity and resilience displayed by soldiers like him show the world that bravery knows no bounds? Or will the shadows of deceit continue to linger over an already scarred battlefield? The echoing question resounds, in the ongoing saga of survival, who will outsmart whom in the theater of war?